What's up, guys? I want to check these out today. This is a 7-band EQ that mounts on the dash somewhere that CT Sound sells. I actually purchased 2 of these, and the reason why I purchased 2 is one of them is going on the spinning wheel for the giveaway on the All Things Car Audio Facebook group, link in the description. They will be drawing every single month. At the end of the month, the top contributor, whoever that is, whoever comments the most, etc., will get the opportunity to have a random drawing in a Wheel of Fortune style spinning wheel with tons of prizes, loaded with prizes, this of which is going to be on there. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually take one of these and put it on the giveaway shelf that is chock full of other stuff as well. Join the Facebook page, you'll get to find out more information about that. You definitely don't want to miss out on some of the upcoming giveaways. So those of you who don't know, with the one remaining is going to go in my pickup. This summer I'm going to do some more SPL oriented events. I'm actually going to host DB drags, etc. in my local area, and I'm also going to be building my pickup to be more of an SPL, more windy kind of build, using somewhere between 6 and 8 15-inch subwoofers. So I figured it would be nice to have an option like this where we can try to control some of that. So let's take a closer look at this unit here. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up because I'm still curious to see what's inside of here. So this just came out a little while ago. There's not a lot of promotion about it. I don't know much about it. Somebody actually sent me a link because I was actually looking to buy an EQ, so they had this one. I figured, hey, that'd be great, you know? Same brand and everything. So let's check this out. The first thing it does is it has some info on the box. You know, standard 12 volts. Has a bunch of adjustment, which is very cool. And it has the different bands right here as well. One thing I don't see on here is the output. This says 0.01% THD at 1 volt output. That's concerning. So what we're going to do is actually take this product here. We're going to break out the oscilloscope and the SMD, and we're going to do some quick tests on it to determine what is the pre-output voltage on this and what are some of the adjustability settings. We'll go over some of the ways you can wire this up. So let's go ahead and look into it now. Let's open it up and see what we got. So the first thing is this. There's a bracket. There's a mounting bracket. There's the standard thank you card. Looks pretty good. There's a decal. They always send a decal with everything. That's super, super cool. Got a stack of those. And also there's the user manual kind of stuffed down in the bottom of the box. We don't need that. And then in here is the rest of the packaging. Let's open this up. Like that. Wow, that's very nice. Very pretty. It's all metal. This is your power input right here. Then it says right here, these are your RCA inputs and outputs. You have your main input, you have an auxiliary input, we'll get into that in a minute, then you have front, rear, and subwoofer output. One of the benefits of this product here is that you have a separate subwoofer control and a separate subwoofer EQ. So if you don't have a bass knob, you can use this to control the main output and or the subwoofer output. Okay, so let's open up this manual and show how this thing can be configured, because there is a couple different ways you can actually use this product. So one of the first ways you can use this product is by connecting up to 2 different input sources, auxiliary, head unit, etc. And then of course you can have up to 3 outputs. The subwoofer has its own dedicated crossover built in. Then you have the front and the rear. You can use 2 2-channels or a 4-channel as shown. So basically what that allows is you to have your main input, which is 2 channels, or a secondary input, which is also 2 channels, and it will split into 3 sets of outputs. So what this can be very useful for is if you have a head unit or something that you don't want to use, or if it only has limited output options. For example, you want to run, say, 2 channels from your line output converter to it. It'll give you all the channels to run everything else in your system. The ability to switch between the two is kind of different to me. I don't know why you would have 2. But if you did, for example, you had an older deck and you had, say, an auxiliary cord, or like in my Facebook group, which I'll link down below, we've been having a discussion about using a Bluetooth adapter to connect to these inputs. That'll allow us to basically put this anywhere we want to and have a full system control off of just a simple Bluetooth module. It's about $20, $30 on the internet. So on the front here we have the main volume, then we have the subwoofer volume, then we have the subwoofer frequency, the fader from front to rear, that's kind of interesting, and this switch right here, which allows you to pick from the main or the auxiliary input. Use 2 inputs, but you can only use 1 at a time. Then you have over here your 7 bands for the parametric EQ. So the parametric just means that you can take one frequency and move it up or down, and it will kind of compensate and have a slope leading into the next frequency. So all said and done, you have a nice smooth wave. You don't have these weird peaks. So the mounting options here, they kind of seem like they bolt on the side here, and this would maybe attach up under something in, say, this configuration right here, up under the dash, etc. I wonder if there's provisions to mount it, say, into your half-DIN slot. That's where most people are going to put something like this, is either under the dash, or in a half-DIN slot. One of the biggest problems with this particular unit is that we don't know the output voltage. It has to be high enough to drive our amplifiers properly, otherwise it really doesn't do very much. So let's go ahead and check that out. I'm going to hook up an input source to this, the same one I use for testing the amplifiers. And then we're going to hook up the DD1 and the oscilloscope, and we're going to see what kind of voltage it makes before it clips. What does the circuitry actually have the capability of producing? Okay, so I'm actually going to connect this now. This little connector terminal on the back just has little screw terminals on it, and you just stick the wire in there and tighten it down, and then it will plug back into the unit. So I'm going to connect, according to this, the ground, the battery, and the remote wire. So first my ground. These are the connections I use for my test bench. They should work just fine. And my power will go next to that. And then the remote wire will kind of squish in next to that. This remote wire gets used and abused. Alright, that's our quick connections right there. Let's plug it in and see if it turns on. Okay, so we plug that in and let's turn it on. Alright, so we have lights. Check that out. I was not expecting that. So we have these wonderful blue LEDs on the behind there. We have these wonderful blue LEDs behind there where you can clearly see all of your knobs. That is going to look super fly. The interior of my truck is going to be black with blue lights, so this would match perfectly. This would match perfectly with my interior of my truck. That is cool. Okay, so we have the main is pushed in, auxiliary is pushed out, so we're going to push it in for the main, and let's hook some stuff up to it. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is actually show you the test we're going to do, because what I want to do, a few things, is test the pre-output voltage of my source here in the shop on the bench. The second I want to do, so that way I know what voltage is going into the EQ. Then the second thing I want to do is actually test the output coming out of the EQ to see what voltage it is there and where it clips at. So to do that, the first thing I'm actually going to do is use the connection from the DD1 and connect that to my oscilloscope. So this oscilloscope right here has been super handy. It's also a meter. I use it for everything. For the lithium battery builds coming up, stay tuned for that. And as well as testing amplifiers. This product right here is fantastic. I got a video about it, link in the video description below. You really need to check one of these out. If you don't have one of these, you're really missing out with the abilities of stuff, with the capabilities you can do with your car audio with having something as simple as this, and they're not that expensive right now. So what I'm going to do is actually take my DD1 and connect the lines from the DD1 to this guy right here. Then I'm going to couple with this little couple adapter to the RCA that is on the test bench right here. And then I will turn this on. Now, one of the settings that this has is an oscilloscope function you can see right here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is take our oscilloscope, which is set into the oscilloscope function on AC voltage, and we're going to take one of the inputs from the head unit and we're going to plug it in. The head unit is turned pretty well all the way up, and let's see what voltage we have. So it appears here we have a 1 volt pre-out. That is abysmal for this little head unit. We can change the range here. You see on the top, 30 volts, 100 volts, and we can change that again from 300 to 300 millivolts, all the way to 3 volts. So you see that our input voltage here is pretty terrible. We can change our time scale as well to stretch that signal out a little bit where we can see it. So our voltage input from the head unit is pretty low. This is definitely a cheaper head unit. It's definitely going to have lower input voltage. So let's put this on the back of this EQ unit here, and we're going to go to the front output. We're going to use the main volume knob on this now. And as we turn up this main volume, you can watch that signal increase. Just like so. Now it'll get to a point where it'll begin to clip. This is our signal. So in this case, we can see that 1000 Hertz test tone, and we can see it very clearly right here on the screen. So if we adjust the voltage down to nothing, you turn it off, and then using the knob, we start turning this up a little bit. Then we can observe the screen here, and we can watch and we can see what voltage it will clip at. If you run this all the way up to clipping, which is right there, that's a very hard clip. You definitely don't want that. But if you turn that down, down to there, where it has its nice little sine wave, then you can see the voltage that this will clip at. And you can see it's about, as you can see, it's about 4.5 volts. Run that up a little bit more. It starts to clip at about 4.5 volts. So this is definitely a 4.5 to 5 volt output. Definitely somewhere in the middle of the road. It'll work perfectly fine for most applications. Most things on the market are set for a 5 volt standard. So it's definitely a 4.5 volt to 5 volt pre-out. I do have pretty good input voltage right here. Everything is working. So there's definitely about, we'll say about a 4.5 to 5 volt pre-out. You can push it well into 5 volts. When it begins to clip, you obviously don't want that. So the next thing I'm going to do is change my test tone to a 40 Hertz test tone. Okay, so I have a 40 Hertz test tone playing. The radio is all the way up. We can see now our oscilloscope is going crazy. We are in the wrong range. So we're going to change that, the time scale, and drag that time scale way back. There we go. That's our 40 Hertz tone. We can see it's clipped pretty bad. That's from the main output on the unit right here. We can see there at a 40 Hertz, we are looking at right around, at 40 Hertz, we are looking right around 5 volts pre-out. So it's very possible this is a proper 5 volt pre-out, but at 1000 Hertz, it's dropping down a little bit. So let's check the subwoofer output and see if it is telling a similar story. So we plug this into the subwoofer output and we look at that now. We'll crank that boy up. Oh man, look at that. So we got 7, almost 8 volts, basically an 8-volt pre-out on the subwoofer channel. So that's pretty cool. You're looking at a 8-volt pre-out on the subwoofer channel and about a 5-volt pre-out on the front channel. We can verify the rear channel really quickly as well. The rear channel appears to be 5 volts at 40 hertz. 5 volts right there. Crazy. So, super cool. This thing does 8 volts and 5 volts respectively at 40 hertz, and 1000 hertz makes a little bit less. It gets kind of noisy towards the high side, which is about 4.6, 4.7 volts. It's basically a 5 volt and an 8 volt.